Okay, we're good. Okay, this class, I'm going to read I hope this isn't on a different Facebook page that nobody knows about. Yeah, okay, so we're good. So I'm going to read, I asked Sundari Radha what we should talk about, and so I'm going to read what she said. And now, I think you can hear me better, is that correct? Yeah, than before? Picture is better, you can hear me better? Okay, this is what she said. Can we discuss appreciation and humility as a foundational requirement for spiritual life? I've been trying to focus and concentrate in the mood of appreciation of Srila Prabhupada and you every day, and I feel like this makes a huge difference in how I respond to situations in life. And I notice when I'm speaking with devotees about problems that they are experiencing full-blown loss of appreciation. I think with full-blown loss of appreciation for what we have in our right hands all the time. In other words, if we're having problems we're not appreciating. So appreciation of Srila Prabhupada and Guru as a conscious practice. Would like to hear what you have to say about this. So, the first thing I like to say, about appreciation is what I would say. I would say about any quality that you're trying to develop is that a lot of the qualities which we apply in devotional service, like appreciation, are qualities which are not in and of themselves spiritual per se, because you can be an appreciative person and not be spiritual. But they're qualities which spiritual people have. You understand the difference? You can have appreciation or you can have humility and not be spiritual. But if you're spiritual, you'll have appreciation and humility. Does that make sense? Yes? We just ate, you had prasadam? No. You did? Yeah. To be Krishna conscious, we need certain qualities. And there are people who are not Krishna conscious who have those qualities. But those qualities will not help them be Krishna conscious. Those qualities in and of themselves won't help them be Krishna conscious. But if you want to be Krishna conscious, you need those qualities. You may, like, maybe you could say there's certain skills you need if you want to be rich, but not everyone who has those skills will be rich. But if you want to be rich, you need those skills, and if you are rich, you have those skills. Is that better? Talk about money and it makes sense, right? So, what some of us may misunderstand is that we only have to apply those qualities in Krishna service, and if we're engaged in ordinary affairs like working, going to school, and taking care of ordinary activities to maintain ourselves, we don't have to exhibit those qualities. They only have to be exhibited in devotional service. So, that's not correct. Because if, let's say, I'm only appreciative in devotional service or devotional things, and I'm not appreciative materially, that means my tendency to appreciate spiritually will be less because I'm not appreciative on a material level. Or let's say I'm not humble with people in general, I'm only humble with devotees. So if I'm not humble with people in general, then I'm developing a tendency not to be humble, which will spill over into my association with devotees. So it's not something that is only meant for devotees. It's a quality. So it shouldn't be a quality that you turn off and on with certain people. Well, you're higher than me, so I respect you. You're lower than me. I turn off respect. Or you're a devotee, I respect you. You're not a devotee, why should I respect you? That idea. So that shouldn't be there. So if we're talking about appreciation, it's the same as talking about anything. That it's not just going to be appreciation for a guru. It has to be a mindset where there's appreciation. Then it'll spill over into Krishna consciousness. And if we don't learn to appreciate in general, it's going to be harder to appreciate on the spiritual level. Does that make sense? It's not it's like saying, well, let's use the money example. If I'm dealing with small business deals, I don't have to be sharp. I only have to be sharp with big ones. Well, then you'll lose money on the small ones. And then when you go to the big ones, your brain will be dull because you're not practicing being sharp. Something like that. So, the other thing I want to say, which I think is interesting about this topic, when we talk about developing qualities which are applied in the spiritual context, a lot of times we're talking about developing qualities which anyone could develop or anyone should have, and how by not having them, it's creating a problem for us. So, just like we're talking about appreciation, but even if I weren't a devotee, I could talk about appreciation and practically say the same things I'm going to say right now. Because it's a psychological reality. When you appreciate, there's a certain psychological response or certain attitude that you have. And it'll have a certain effect on you. So I just wanted to say that as a preface, that we had a class the other night. Maybe we broadcast part of it. Is this first become a human being before you enter Krishna Leela. So it was about this idea. And that there's certain qualities which we need to practice Krishna consciousness. Right? And they have to be manifest always in all situations. And they're very, we might call them virtues, but they're, we might call them human qualities, refined, cultured, like that. So, my point is, if we don't have appreciation of simple things, we don't have appreciation in general, then it spills over into family. Then there's no appreciation there. And then it spills over into spirituality. And then we may tend to not appreciate what we have. Or even find fault with what we have, or even minimize what we have. Now, unfortunately, there's a history that disciples have rejected their gurus, which seems to be impossible to do if there's a high level of appreciation. And I learned about one disciple recently who rejected his guru, rejected ISKCON and his guru. And my first thought was, it's due to a lack of culture. Because a cultured person who understands what is guru and what is disciple would not reject their guru. Would they? unless they went crazy. Even they may have a Siksha guru who's guiding them, who is they feel closer to or feel more advanced or whatever, but they would never reject their guru. So if we lack appreciation in general, that it may spill over even on the highest level. During the time of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, there were some disciples who rejected him, who disagreed with him, who found fault in what he said. This happens more covertly now within our movement of people who propound to accept Prabhupada, who may not actually accept everything he said, or may interpret what he said in ways that it doesn't come out the way Prabhupada meant it. But that way they can believe they're chaste to Prabhupada, when actually in many ways they're rejecting what he taught. But of course there are devotees who did reject Prabhupada outright. And Prabhupada said that a disciple is indebted to his guru in such a way that he can never repay him. The debt is so great, it's unrepayable. So a disciple, Prabhupada said, disciple always feels indebted. The disciple always feels indebted. Like, a disciple always feels grateful. I can't repay my guru, so I always feel indebted to repay him. Diksha guru, Siksha guru, whatever. So, I want to tell a few stories, because I think the topic of being ungrateful, although you ask for appreciation, I think we can approach this topic, at least initially, from this perspective of being ungrateful. So, Queen Kunti was given a benediction by the sun god. No, she was given a benediction by who? Durvasa? She pleased Durvasa. Is that correct? Queen Kunti? Pleased Durvasa was given a benediction that she could call any of the demigods, or the 5 main demigods. Anyway, she was given this benediction and she wanted to try it out, and she called the sun god. And this was Durvasa who blessed her? Does anyone know? Who knows?
Yes.
It was Vyas. What did she do? Anyway, I'm having a brain dead moment here. So Kunti was given the benediction that she could, it's okay. She was given the benediction she could call different demigods, given a mantra. So anyway, she tried it out and the sun god appeared. And she was kind of surprised. But then the sun god said something. He said, well, you've called me, so there has to be some benefit from this. This part of this benediction is that you call me, then I have to, anyone you call, I have to will impregnate you with a child. So she was impregnated by the sun god, which was quite embarrassing. And she tried to keep it secret. Anyway, Karna was born. Karna means ear. Was Karna born from her ear? Is that the story? Karna came out of her ear? No? Why was he called Karna? Because he had earrings on? He was born with earrings? You don't remember? He was born with earrings. Yeah, all right. So Karna was born with earrings. And so Karna was actually the first son of Kunti. But she gave him away, right? Because she didn't want anyone to know. somehow she concealed her pregnancy. Durvasmati gave him the benediction for helping him with a yajna when she was a child. Okay. So, I was right. So, Karna was her firstborn, but she had to give him away. And later on, before the battle was about to take place, when they were trying to resolve, Krishna was trying to resolve things with Duryodhana, Kunti told Karna, broke the news to him, that you're actually my son. And Karna was now on the side of Duryodhana, and so Karna was going to be fighting his own brothers, which he now just learned were his brothers. Correct? So Kunti, who is the mother, says, you're my son, please don't fight your brothers. You'll have to fight in battle and kill them. This is not right. And Karna said, you rejected me, the whole family rejected me, and Duryodhana took care of me, he raised me. And I know that Duryodhana is evil, and I know that he's selfish. But if I don't fight on his behalf, then I would be ungrateful, because Duryodhana took care of me. So I understand the situation. And Kunti's saying, if you fight, if you just take our side, there won't even have to be a battle, because Duryodhana will accept it. And no one will have to be killed, and you'll be the king. And he said, even I know that I can't go on your side, because you all rejected me, and Duryodhana, he accepted me and he raised me. He said, I would be ungrateful. And then he said something very heavy. He said, there is no sin greater than ungratefulness. There's no person more sinful than a person who's ungrateful. Interesting, right? No person more sinful than a person who's ungrateful. That was Karna's comment. Yeah. So, being ungrateful, we think, okay, we should appreciate. But here it said, not appreciating when someone gives you something is actually sinful. Like lying is sinful. Right? So, as far as your question about the Guru, Prabhupada said, as I said, Guru, we should always feel grateful and indebted, and we can never repay the Guru. So, Hare Krishna. We have guests coming in and out, and I just took prasadam, so double distraction. So I was making the point earlier that we find in the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism that sometimes disciples foolishly reject their guru, which obviously means there's no gratitude, there's no gratefulness. And it's unfortunate because the connection between guru and disciple is a very potentially powerful connection. Well, it said, Alejandro says, we're the biggest sinners if we're ungrateful to Krishna. Well, yes, but Krishna sends the Guru, so then that's double ungrateful. He sends the Guru to pull you out. So if you're not grateful to the Guru, that means two times not grateful to Krishna. So, then Sundari Radha was asking about the connection between appreciation and humility. And Prabhupada showed that that attitude, because whenever he talked about his spiritual master, two things that I remember consistently coming out. One, as we've talked before, that I'm not qualified, but my guru is qualified. And my guru was doing everything, and I owe everything to him. And the I'm not qualified part is the humility part. So, indebtedness for what the guru has given, and then the humility that I'm not qualified I have no qualification myself. And when the disciple feels this way, then he's very chaste to the order of the guru. He doesn't become proud thinking he's better or so forth. So now you might say, well, what about in the modern context? You're talking about Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, or maybe yourself and Srila Prabhupada. But in the present context, we have so much association with our gurus, and sometimes they might tell us something that's maybe not practical for us in the present situation. So the culture is that even with Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his guru was not a Vaishnava within the line of Gaudiya Vaishnavism that we follow. He was a sort of, it was said he was sort of a Smarta Vaishnava. And I've told the story before that he had to take initiation to be respected as a preacher of Vaishnavism. And so Bipin Bihari Goswami was available to give initiation, and he took initiation. But he didn't take his instructions that seriously. He took instructions from Jagannath Das Babaji. And even Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had some issues with Bipin Bihari Goswami, that he didn't respect him. But because Bhaktivinoda Thakur had taken him as his guru, even though he wasn't directly taking siksha from him, still respected him as a disciple should respect the guru. At least we could say he never disrespected him. He kept a special place for him, even though he wasn't directly being guided by him. So that's the culture. Therefore we could say cultured people will always respect and appreciate, honor their guru, even if they're not directly working with them or directly being guided by them per se, or even if their instructions are not foremost in their lives. But by culture, Bhaktivinoda Thakur always respected him, honored him, and you're my guru, so I pay my obeisances to you, like that. I respect you as my guru. I don't think it was such a conflicting problem for Bhaktivinoda Thakur, because he was taking guidance from Jagannath Das Babaji, and apparently Vipin Bihari Goswami wasn't his main Siksha guru. So I think one of the things that's important for us, and this is a little bit, and maybe it's subtle, but we know within our organization, ISKCON, that there are many challenges we face, and not all devotees act properly all the time. Sometimes even a leader may do something which is not 100% proper. And so sometimes we look at the society and we find things going on that we may disagree with or find hard. We tell ourselves it's hard to be part of a society that you disagree with, or maybe doesn't live up to what you think Prabhupada wanted. But at the same time, Prabhupada asked us to remain in ISKCON, and that's therefore an order from Srila Prabhupada. And to get the mercy of the Guru, you have to follow his order. And if we don't follow that order, then we'll miss out on some of his mercy. We will displease him in some way. So I think appreciating Srila Prabhupada is also appreciating what he did with ISKCON and how he wants us to make it work, even if we might find it not working in some areas or as best as possible. But that is our, you can say, our gratefulness to Prabhupada is manifest in our desire and effort to make ISKCON successful in spite of the challenges that ISKCON has, in spite of its shortcomings, in spite of individual shortcomings, and maybe even in spite of compromised ethics at some point in time. So I think that's an important point, because ISKCON, keeping together and working within, was a cherished, being in ISKCON, working together, was a cherished desire of Srila Prabhupada. Something very important for him. And so to minimize that order, to not take it seriously. I know a lot of devotees don't take it that seriously because I don't think they realize how important it was for Prabhupada for us to stay and work together. I think they just don't realize it, and they could say, well, ISKCON this, ISKCON that, and therefore I'm not really into it, so I'm not going to really support it, and so on. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So we should look at that and think, no, that there's a lot more to it than just saying, it's not for me, I don't relate to it, I've had enough, this leader did something wrong. That's too easy. And so our gratefulness, we would be ungrateful to Prabhupada if we just walked out. Another thought I had, and I don't know, this is exactly covering the topic the way you wanted it, but hopefully it will be. Another thought I was having yesterday was, we've been talking about, for the last few weeks, I've been talking about how we have to be in the right consciousness to be a devotee. So today we're talking about we have to be in the consciousness of appreciation. That helps our bhakti. Or the consciousness of humility. That helps our bhakti. And so fault finding is a consciousness. And so generally we think it's okay to find fault as long as there is a fault. But we have to go deeper and understand fault finding is a mentality. So even if you're fault finding something that is a fault, but it's creating a mentality. So it's just the wrong mentality, even though it is a fault, and we don't want to create that mentality. So it's something we really need to consider, because we're trying to look at justifying our actions, but whether it's justifiable or not, the consciousness is wrong. You see? So that's the point. If we want to be in a consciousness that reflects an appreciation of Prabhupada as a reflection of his teachings, that I appreciate what he's teaching, so I'm going to try to exemplify in my life what he taught. That shows I'm grateful, doesn't it? That shows I'm grateful for what I had, what he's given me. The more you try to follow the instructions of your Guru, the more you try to push forward the mission of your Guru, the more you're showing appreciation for what he's given, the more you're showing gratefulness. Just like Prabhupada, I think it was one letter, he said, if at all indebted to me, then please distribute my books. This was so important for Prabhupada, to distribute his books. And so he used this, if you're indebted to me, then you can repay me by distributing my books. So naturally, when there's, a lot of times devotees will say, I really feel grateful and indebted to my Guru or to Srila Prabhupada. But it's got to go more than a feeling. It's got to manifest in furthering the mission. So a lot of times we see devotees who are very, very dedicated. And sometimes we wonder, how is it that they're so dedicated? But I think one of the things we can say is that that dedication is a manifestation of their gratefulness for what they've been given, and a manifestation of their desire to pay Prabhupada or pay their spiritual masters back for what he gave them. So gratefulness is empowering. It causes us to go beyond the call of duty. It causes us to go beyond what we would normally do. Right? So we have some questions from Krishna Karshini. What does it mean to be grateful to Guru? We may say we are grateful to Guru, but at the same time do nothing. Yeah, I think I just answered that. I think, like they say, love is a verb. So I think sometimes we might deceive ourselves in thinking we have love or gratefulness, but it's only in Shantaras. Shantaras, there's no service. It's like Shantaras is appreciation. I appreciate my Guru, but as far as the mission, well, I don't do that much. I don't make that much sacrifice. So I would say, the more we appreciate, I did say, and I'll say it again, the more we appreciate, the more there'll be dedication to the mission. What did Prabhupada want? Like some people say, you shouldn't become Guru unless you're, at least on the stage of Baba. You have to have love of Krishna. So people could question, well, why did you become Guru? And the answer, I think, of any Guru is because Prabhupada asked us, and we want to repay him for what he's given us, and he wants us to do this, so we do it. He wanted us to share it, so we share it. Not because we want to, or like to, or don't like to, but because we want to pay back the debt, the gratefulness. So we'll do things maybe which are not materially in our best interest, like taking lots of disciples and lots of karma and this and that. And so many of our godbrothers are doing this, and it's a huge sacrifice. So it's an indebtedness. So, I think it's fair to say that when indebtedness hits a certain threshold, it manifests in sacrifice to the spiritual master. Like a lot of times, I don't want to get up early, gone to bed late, I don't feel well. And I think, but Prabhupada wants me to do it. So part of my indebtedness would be to follow his instruction, even if it's difficult, because this is what he wants me to do. So I think it can manifest that way. Certainly it can manifest in Shantaras, that appreciate how you've helped me, I appreciate how you've solved my problems, I appreciate your abilities, your vision, the way you preach, all these things. So certainly that's going to be there, and it should be there. But I think where we could get stuck is just on appreciation and, endlessly, it's like endlessly glorifying the Guru without actually doing much. And Prabhupada expressed that in his Vyas Puja offering. He once said, it was the Vyas Puja, I don't remember the exact context, but he said just a festival of flowers is not the real worship of the Guru, because maybe it wasn't a Vyas Puja, maybe it was something else, but Srila Prabhupada was reflecting on the condition of Gaudiya Math, and it must have been Vyas Puja, and he said, well, we've all gathered together to honor the Guru, to offer him our homage, to offer him fruits and flowers, but the real homage, the real worship is one who serves the mission. And so Prabhupada was, as you know, he had this mission in mind, and he was very clear that this was really the heart of what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted. It was really in his heart to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And he was looking at Gaudiya Mata, he was looking at his godbrothers, and he was seeing that was not in their heart. It was implanted in his heart. He knew the desire of Bhaktisiddhanta, but that desire, he didn't see it planted in the hearts of his godbrothers. And it really concerned him. And it boiled over, it erupted in that offering. It's like, okay, we've gathered here, we're doing this amazing worship, appreciation, glorification of Bhaktisiddhanta. And there's a desire he had, which is his most important desire, and it's being neglected. So for Prabhupada, this was like a huge paradox, in the name of love of the Guru or appreciation. I just read a story where it must have been like 1968 or 69, and maybe 70. The Bhagavad Gita had been printed and it wasn't being distributed. And Prabhupada said, "Why aren't you distributing?" And Brahmananda said, "We don't know how." And Prabhupada said, something like, if you love me, you'll figure out how to do it. If you're actually devoted to my order, to spiritual mastery, you figure out how to do it. Which is true, and which we did figure out of devotion. I just read a story today, and it took place in Melbourne, and they were going to hire a guy to train the devotees in sales techniques, how to be successful as a salesperson. And the guy saw what the devotees were doing on book distribution, and he said, I could take your money, but you're already doing the right thing. He said the most important quality for a salesman is to be convinced of his product. And you are convinced of your product, and that's why you can sell it. So, gratefulness is a conviction in the mission, conviction in the words of the Guru, and then execution, sacrificing other things to execute the mission. That's what Prabhupada wanted. He wanted us to sacrifice our own interest for the benefit of others. So that's what it means to appreciate, I believe. So we don't just want to remain in Shanta Rasa appreciation. We want to take it to something active. Okay. I'm doing proofreading in Polish of your class of appreciation. Well, that's interesting. What did I say? I'd love to hear my old classes. I don't even know what I said. And you said something very significant for me, that we may not find anything in the moment in the particular devotee to appreciate, but we can appreciate the endeavor of devotees to change, even if the person may not be perfect. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we all get to experience is when we are away from the devotees, for whatever reason, visiting family or work or whatever it is, and we have to spend a lot of time with non-devotees, our appreciation for the devotees generally rises, although some people say the opposite. Anyway, generally it rises because we see the nature of non-devotees, and although we can appreciate people who are not devotees for their various qualities, we appreciate the special nature of the devotee and the uniqueness of the devotee, even though they may be struggling or not perfect or whatever. And so we should always remember that. But again, we can go back to this point. Appreciation is a state of consciousness that we need to be Krishna conscious. We need it, it's required. That's why we don't find fault, even if there is a fault, because that consciousness is destructive. Right? So we need to cultivate the consciousness everywhere, in all times, places, and circumstances that is going to feed into our Krishna consciousness. So if there's a devotee and you say, well, I don't see anything to appreciate about him, the fact that you're not appreciating is going to be a problem for you more than the devotee. It may not even be a problem for him, but for you it'll be a problem. Gaurnisha says, how can someone help a disciple or devotee who under some unfortunate circumstance totally forget, or for a lack of a better word, unfollow the mercy of their Guru? I understand that. Guru is very forgiving and loving, but how can we get the devotee back on the path and stop the devotee from aparad? It depends what's going on with the individual devotee, and it depends on your relationship with that devotee. And sometimes devotees make offenses to their guru and they don't understand they're making offenses. They're just trying to do whatever they do, and they're trying to be reasonable and so forth. And because of lack of culture, or maybe lack of understanding themselves, it comes out as offensive. It comes out as lack of trust, criticism in some way, accusation, and so forth. Sometimes the guru has to help the devotee realize it. More education about the nature of guru-disciple relationship. See, the thing is, there's another thing. It's the same thing with fault finding. It's like, it's not about the guru being perfect. Everyone said, the guru has to be perfect, he has to be perfect. The Prabhupada said even, I'm not perfect. So, it's not just about perfection. It's more about the disciple being perfect in their submission and approach to the guru. Because it's a principle. It's just like there's a principle that we should serve the Vaishnavas. So does that mean you choose which Vaishnavas to serve? Okay, I'll serve him because he's a big devotee. I won't serve him because he's a new bhakta. No, the principle is service. And even if you don't serve the new bhakta, it has a bad effect on you. It's just a reality. It's the wrong consciousness. So your guru may be Mahabhagavat, liberated soul, descended from the spiritual world, or he may be a sadhaka who is still maybe only on the stage of nishta. But as a disciple, your duty is to honor that guru and serve him in some way. As we said, Bhaktivinoda Thakur did it maybe more from a distance, but he never turned against him. He never criticized him. That's very Western. Well, my guru told me something, that's wrong, or I don't agree with that. Or he wasn't sympathetic to what I said, so, okay, that's it, it's over. I reject him, or not exactly like that. Okay, maybe he's preaching in a way which doesn't exactly resonate with you. So you might have to be a little bit at a distance, but respectful from a distance. Right? That's culture. So, I would say the main thing you want devotees to understand is if they have some, let's say, disagreement with their guru, or their vision is different, or they're grown into a new phase of life, and perhaps their guru is not understanding it as well as they would like, or whatever. But still, we have to remain respectful. Just going to be from a distance. That's culture, right? Yes? So you would help the devotee and say, whatever the difference is or problem is, always remain respectful as a disciple, because that will please Krishna. It's not about you pleasing yourself. If you honor your guru, even if from a distance, don't make offense, be respectful, and that will please Krishna. And if you don't, Krishna won't be pleased, and it will affect your spiritual life. That's important to understand, because the Western mentality is, no, this is right, and that's wrong, and we have to establish it's right and wrong. It's not exactly like that. Maybe your conception of right and wrong. But the point is, that person is your guru, so it's not just about right and wrong. It's about respecting the guru. The guru represents Krishna to you. You have to respect that. Not just the person, guru, but the position, the delegation. That's Krishna's delegation. Here, you go, you preach. You're a delegate. You're my delegate. Okay, maybe you preach not so well. He preaches better. But you're a delegate. So you have to honor the delegate. from the president or prime minister. You have to honor that person. It's not necessarily about the qualification, but you have to honor the delegate. So the delegation, sometimes Guru is said to be the delegation of Krishna. So you honor that. You honor that position. It's not just the person. Just like you honor the bhakta because he's a devotee, so you serve all the devotees, including the bhakta. Yes? How do we know that what we are doing is pleasing Guru? Not everyone can do such direct service, but still do service and preach. I know book distribution pleases Prabhupada. Yeah, there's some things you just know. Like chanting good rounds, rising early, reading Prabhupada's books, preaching, book distribution, helping devotees, serving devotees. You know all these things are pleasing to Prabhupada. You have to know that. That's obvious. And sometimes you can check with your Guru and say, this is what you want me to do. But if you're going to ask that question, sometimes you will be doing something the Guru doesn't really think you should be doing, or it's not so great, but you've never asked him. So you have to be careful if you ask him, because you may get an answer that you don't want to hear. Some people better not ask, because they may not be able to follow. Yeah. Yeah. If you're pleasing your Guru, you're making advancement also. Yeah. You know, Prabhupada made it clear what was pleasing to him, and we understood that spreading the movement and taking care of the devotees was very important for him. Spreading the movement, of course, included book distribution and so many programs. And so it wasn't really a mystery what would please him. He made it pretty clear. And sometimes when Prabhupada said, well, Prabhupada, how do we know you're pleasing? How do I know you're pleased with me? He said, if you please the temple president, I'm pleased. Or I'll ask the temple president. If he's pleased, I'm pleased. So that's the, if other devotees are pleased with you, Guru is pleased. One of the things that was so upsetting to Prabhupada was when devotees didn't get along together. And even more so upsetting was when they were creating factions. And they were taking sides and the movement was about to split. So when devotees did those things, it gave a lot of unhappiness to Prabhupada. So disciples should understand these things. You think, I'll just leave ISKCON, no big deal. That makes Prabhupada unhappy. And how are you going to make advancement? How is that going to be good for your life? Of course, you can make advancement outside of ISKCON. It's not that you can't follow the practices, but it'll have some effect. Something is there if you displease your Guru. It's not perfect. So, you want to be sensitive. Prabhupada wanted us to work together. He didn't want us to create factions. You need to be careful. It's displeasing to him. We might give a class that might end up creating factions, for all we know. This party's good, this party's bad. This ashram's good, this ashram's bad. This gender's good, this gender's bad. That was not pleasing to Prabhupada. So we should know that one of the things that was most displeasing to Prabhupada was when devotees didn't get along. And when devotees acted in a way that could create potential factions or did create factions. Very, very upsetting to him. So, we're more of the mindset, well, I don't like this devotee, I don't get along, so that's the end of the story. But it's not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a weed. It's the beginning of a new story, that this is not what Prabhupada wants. So, we have to understand these things. And another thing that Prabhupada didn't like was apasiddhanta, speculation in which we came to conclusions which were not siddhantic or not our philosophy. And wrong philosophy being preached and enters our society. It's very upsetting. So we to be very careful when we're speaking the philosophy when we're discussing it, that we don't make things up just based on how we feel. Well, I feel like this would be better, that's okay. But it has to be backed up by what Prabhupada said. Because if it's not, and that's being spoken amongst the devotees, that's displeasing to Prabhupada. So, to understand what pleases your guru, what pleases Prabhupada, you have to know more about their heart and their desire, and you have to look at their teachings. And you can understand, if you personify what they're teaching, that's going to be pleasing. If you don't, it's going to be displeasing. Does that make sense? Yes, I live with my parents now, and I get so excited when I get devotee association. It helped me become very appreciative. Yeah. That's generally what happens when you get too much non-devotee association. Don't you think that the reason of being not able to appreciate maybe also connect with low self-esteem? Because if someone doesn't feel good about themselves, they'll have a hard time appreciating others. Could be. So it may be also kind of psychological issue. Yeah, that's always there. If you're expecting your guru to fulfill certain needs that are not in his job description, that's going to be a problem. Then you won't appreciate it. Oh, he never did this, he never did that. But he never said he would. You just thought he would. And then that becomes a problem. That becomes a little offensive. Or a lot of offensive. She has my plug for my phone. Can you... Pooja has. Can you get it?
The plug there.
Plug for my phone? Phone plug? Yeah. I don't want to forget it. Okay. I have to leave soon. I have another class. This is my second class today. I have two more. I'm like a professor. I also heard that if we fault find, it's because we want to be the controller, so shouldn't we just try and accept each situation and person for where they are? And then we lose the need to find fault. That works. It's a mentality. You have to get to the source of the mentality. It's like I think a big reason why we do things which are not Krishna conscious, why we do things which we're told we shouldn't do, is because we don't have the mentality that's required to act the proper way. And one of the reasons, or perhaps the main reason we don't have the mentality, is because we may not understand how detrimental a certain mentality is, and we may not understand how important the proper mentality is. So if you actually understand the psychology of Vaishnavism and the psychology of fault-finding, you will realize that fault-finding is as far from the consciousness of a devotee as you can get, and it can alter your attitude towards everything. So you just fault-find doesn't become part of who you are anymore. It's not, how should we say, you realize it's not the mentality of a Vaishnava, so you just abhor it to such a point that it just leaves you. It doesn't, as easily as you used to fault find, now you don't. It's just not part of who you are. Does that make sense? It's understanding the mood and consciousness of a Vaishnava, what it is, and understanding what it isn't, so that you can adopt the right attitude, and the right attitude would therefore prevent you from fault finding. It's like we don't eat meat. Look at fault finding like meat eating. Imagine fault finding were like meat eating, and you couldn't dream of finding a fault. How could you get to that position? You would have to have such a deep understanding of how detrimental it is, how un-Vaishnava-like it is, how horrid it is and sinful it is, that you would never do it. Just as you understand that about meat eating, that's why you'll never do it. Yes? We don't, Fault-finding of Vaishnava is way more detrimental to your Krishna consciousness. Sit down, everyone, because this is heavy. It's way more detrimental to your Krishna consciousness than eating a Big Mac. If you have a choice between offending a Vaishnava, eating a Big Mac, go eat a Big Mac, because you'll survive the Big Mac, but you may not survive the offense to a Vaishnava. That's the reality. And I don't think we understand that. And if we do understand that, it's going to change the way we look at the world. I used to listen to your music many years ago. So did I. Even went on stage with you and your group and play with you and your Hari Bol. Jai Jasmine, Ki Jai. Amazing. Went on stage with us. Where? What stage? At Westheimer? I've learned to tolerate, and that has brought me new insights and more peacefulness. I have a better understanding with some devotees with whom I have regularly clashes in the temple. But we are more willing to learn from each other. That is a very rich experience. Thanks to following the instructions, willing to swallow our pride, yes. Yeah, swallow your pride. Yeah, so the point is, if we understand the mentality of a Vaishnava, we understand what the mentality isn't, then things like appreciation, humility, and so they'll just be natural. Because you'll just adopt the mentality which is necessary for advancing in Krishna consciousness. And if we have a mentality where we're always resentful, angry, critical, and so on, it's not the mentality of a Vaishnava, and something's wrong. We didn't understand. We didn't understand. We're missing. Something's missing. Screws are loose. We're not understanding the mood of a Vaishnava. Oh, he did this. That wasn't right. I can't forgive him. That has nothing to do with Krishna consciousness. It has all to do with our own conditioning and our own need to be right and our pride and so forth. So we have to understand that. A husband and wife can also get on each other's nerves. How can they avoid fault finding? Manasamhita says women should be honored. Wherever women are honored, there's prosperity, there's peace. Men don't understand that, so therefore they don't honor women. They see women as sex objects, as slaves, whatever. And stupid men fight with their wives. You can quote me on that. It's Manu Samhita says women should be honored. Where the women are honored, the gods reside. Where women are honored, all prosperity resides. And if a man is fighting with his wife, he's stupid. Just look at the shlokas. There's so many shlokas like that, you know. Women are to be honored, respected, and you fight with them? What's going on? It's the same point. You're not imbibing the mentality of a husband or imbibing the mentality of a wife. You don't understand what it is, so you can't manifest it. It'll all be artificial. You'll hear a class and being nice, and 3 days you'll be nice, and the fourth day you won't be, because you haven't imbibed the mentality, because you don't understand it. So once you understand what it means to be a devotee, what it means to be a wife, a husband, then you imbibe the mentality. Everything's easy. You appreciate, you honor, it's just natural. That's what you do because you have the mentality of a devotee. You're humble. You have all these qualities. But when you don't, when you're manifesting all these other qualities, it's like we have to ask you the question, what didn't you understand? What do you miss? What didn't you understand about we shouldn't blaspheme devotees? What didn't you understand about we shouldn't criticize? What didn't you understand about we should appreciate devotees? What part of that don't you understand? It's quite simple. But the problem is we haven't imbibed that mentality because we didn't really understand it. So that's my whole point. When you understand it, you just do it. And you do it 24/7. And you do it with non-devotees. You do it with everybody. Big devotees, little devotees, no devotees, dogs, cats. You do it with everyone. It's just a mentality. That's what we're supposed to be developing in Krishna consciousness. And if you don't have the mentality and you're trying to follow something, you don't follow it. You follow it for a few days. I have a little statistic for you. Depending how good the class is, that's how long it will last. So a good class could last you up to 10 days. Now you change your mentality for 10 days because it was such a good class. On the 11th day, finished. Or it wasn't such a good class, it only lasted 3 days, or 1 day, or a half hour after class, You were being nice to everybody, and an hour later, you were not nice to everybody. Because you didn't adopt a mentality. Nothing changed. It was just an idea. You didn't enter into it. You didn't understand it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Participating in programs such as Krishna West are apart from the temple is an option if we cannot deal with some leaders' attitudes. Is that a question? I can't answer that question. You see, yeah, it may be an option, but I cannot deal with some leaders' attitudes is a failure in consciousness. It's better to say I would be more productive working with other leaders, but say I cannot work is a very inflexible attitude, and not a manifestation of much humility. But I understand what you mean. All right, Krishna Karshani has one more question somewhere. Let's see if I find it. No, I didn't find it. May I ask one more? You have one more chance, and then we're going to go. Yes, the other people will be waiting for me. Hopefully they're late, and I'll be late with them. So we'll have a party of being late. So Krishna Karshani, you can ask your question, but I have to see it soon. And while you're asking, I'm going to start packing. Because we go give one class, and then after that class, we go give another class. And after that class, we have prasadam, and then we come home, and then we leave tomorrow morning. But the good news is I don't have much luggage, so I don't really have to worry about packing, because I have very little to pack. Being humble implies being humble also. It's like, you want a shortcut to being humble, you want like 10 steps to being humble, like some new insight. Not actually like that, it's a mentality. But yeah, being flexible. Jimena, I had a realization the other day. I wasn't thinking about you, but I was dealing with another situation, and I realized that I don't want to initiate anybody who doesn't get along with other devotees. I think that they haven't understood Krishna consciousness. And, if you can't get along with devotees, it's like, what have you understood? Very little. So I was seriously thinking like that if somebody can't get along with other devotees, that's a problem. And they're not ready to be initiated. Does that sound too heavy? But I'm 100% serious. That's a super important qualification. What went under the criticizing mentality's desire for justice? Desire for justice is a huge anartha, in my opinion. Huge problem. Because one who desires justice, unless they're in a position of a kshatriya and have kshatriya qualities, they become extremely offensive and fault-finding, from what I've seen. And they're just, crushing people down. So if you desire justice, then utilize it in an official capacity with compassion and forgiveness to met out justice where it's necessary. But if you're just an ordinary devotee, wielding a sword of justice, you're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble, and it's going to hurt you tremendously in your spiritual life. Because at the base of that so-called need for justice is going to be an extremely critical mentality. And I've seen it, and it's dangerous. So we have to be careful. We're not about justice, we're about mercy. That's the whole point, It's not a movement of justice. This is not the movement of Yamaraj. This is the movement of Mahaprabhu. So, it's like, okay, you may have a nature of justice, but this is not the movement of justice. You're a part of the movement of mercy, so you have to imbibe the mood of Mahaprabhu and the mood of your spiritual master, not your own mood. Well, I'm all about justice. Well, good for you. Lord Chaitanya isn't, Prabhupada isn't, your guru isn't. So you want to be part of this movement? Then you have to, drop your need for justice, or, run for head magistrate of something, and you can, met out justice all day. But if Prabhupada was into justice, you wouldn't be a devotee, I wouldn't be a devotee, nobody would be a devotee. Right? So, it's again, it's the same point. You have to have the mentality of a Vaishnava. And so many people are trying to do devotional service, and they don't have the mentality of a Vaishnava, and they're not cultivating it, and they're getting themselves into trouble. And they're justifying everything they're doing based on right and wrong, but they're not exhibiting the mentality of a Vaishnava. Yeah, it's justice, this is wrong. Yeah, but, Jagat and Madhai were wrong also. So what, we chop their heads off? You have to follow in the mood of Mahaprabhu. Otherwise your justice will get you in trouble. You agree? Yeah, okay. So we're going to stop, and we're off to the next gig. Hare Krishna. All glories to Prabhupada.